first, I just wanted to say congratulations on the movie. It was it's pretty intense.
I know.
Yeah,
Very.
there's a lot going on, and I guess I'll just start off with what was it the most that intrigued you about the script and prompted you to sign on for Warning?
I guess I liked the idea of this woman, Claire, who like lives in her own little world and doesn't interact with another human. You know, it's not often in a movie that a character doesn't have another person to do scenes with if they're maybe on a road trip on their own, but there's not many opportunities for it. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And also Agatha's enthusiasm and her vision is quite out there and quite bold for a first-time filmmaker. And I just respected her tenacity and her boldness to get that movie made.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was so much going on, but it was still, there was like the horror elements, the sci-fi elements, and and it was like set in the not too distant future. And I feel like much of it riffed on kind of like what's currently going on in society. So I can't imagine that it was like super difficult to get into the necessary mindset to play the character of Claire. What was that like? How did you prepare for the role?
You know, I imagined her life, I imagined her story. As you say, you know, we like to call these things sci-fi or dystopian futures, but to me, I did a Black Mirror where we rated people for, and then you had a better life depending on your rating. I don't feel like that's too far. I think that's pretty much found us in many ways as a way of keeping each other in check. And I found this one, again, to be very close to what is potentially true. I mean, today, for example, I have spent most of the day talking to people on a computer, and you know, it's a life that is ultimately isolated. And so the idea of loneliness and isolationism is something I wanted to explore. And I imagined what this girl was struggling with internally.
Yeah, and I think what was so interesting about Claire's specific plot in this movie was the marriage of technology and spirituality. And I thought that was really sort of prescient in terms of where we're going as a society. Did your own perspective on spirituality play a part in how you approached Claire?
Yes, I mean, my spirituality, my journey with spirituality is a huge part of my life. I was born, you know, into a Catholic family and have had, you know, many relationships with that, and then also my own journey. And I believe everyone is a spiritual being, and I believe it's the most important part of us. And so I found it to be disturbing that this girl had given her power over to this Alexa 2.0 thing that was going to be her spiritual guide. And to me, that was the great warning in the piece, which is to maintain your autonomy, your spiritual autonomy. With the kind of demise of religion in the West, the great boon has been that we can follow our own guide and we learn our own intuition and our own moral compass. And I thought that, you know, lose that at your peril, like beware, don't do that, you know, keep working on yourself, even though it's hard.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Claire's isolation, as you mentioned, is one of the most interesting parts of her character. And you did say that you came up with a backstory for her. Can you kind of tease that or hint at sort of the background you gave for her prior to the film?
I imagined that, you know, she had her heart broken. And as we all do when we have our hearts really broken, we want to retreat and curl up and not see any more people because it's like a tender wound is being like touched every time. And usually, or back in the 90s or before, you know, you have your heart broken, you maybe retreat, and then the world kind of lures you back in and you heal because the heart heals. But this is like something was able to hook onto her and trap her in a moment in time, this AI, this tech, where she didn't have to continue to personally develop and she became reliant on something else. To me, it's not too different to substance abuse, really, because it sort of halts progression and development. It's like you outsource it. And so she kind of got stuck in a moment. And I imagine that that was from heartbreak.
Yeah, definitely. I think that adds to what is already, I feel like, one of the most grounded and realistic plots of the movie, because obviously we get a lot more that's way more out there in terms of believability. But Claire's story is so just like it could happen, you know, like it definitely feels real. Did that make it more terrifying to you, less terrifying to you?
I'm terrified. I'm genuinely terrified. Okay, well, good, because I found it crazy after the Black Mirror that people were like, can you imagine this ever happening? And I was like, what do you mean, can you imagine this ever happening? It's happened. Like, what?
Exactly.
I'm like, wait, you're late to the party. Like, it's terrifying the amount that I check my phone. It's terrifying that like every morning I have to be like, don't check your phone. And I have to like spend the time remembering my dreams, like 5 minutes, like checking in with myself. And like the level of self policing you have to do to continually separate from technology it's exhausting, you know, it's exhausting. It's much easier to give up coffee. One day you miss it, and then after that you forget about coffee, you know, it's gone. And so, yeah, I'm terrified.
Yeah. Yeah. There, like, and like you mentioned earlier, like with the Black Mirror and stuff, there are some clear parallels there. And I actually really loved that episode of Black Mirror that you were in Nosedive. And I was wondering if that role or any of your other roles kind of influenced how you played Claire, and if you could talk about that process a little bit.
You know what? One of the things that I'm really interested in, and I spend a lot of time on my phone reading about, is astrology. And I'm an Aquarius, and Aquarius are very out there, eccentric and kooky. And I don't feel like I've ever played an Aquarius. I feel like certainly the girl in Black Mirror is definitely like a Taurus or maybe a Scorpio, but mostly earth sign, like into material stuff. And this girl I really enjoyed because she's kind of kooky and out there and like has pink hair and doesn't care what other people think and like maybe isn't accepted by everyone. And so no, I didn't really reference anyone I'd played. It was more like a Helena Bonham Carter type character for me. And I admire her so much. And she's so eccentric. And it was that kind of person that I held inside when I played her.
Yeah, I think the Aquarius definitely came through. Two of my really good friends are Aquariuses. So, and I was literally just drinking out of my Scorpio coffee mug.
Oh, you're a Scorpio. Well, I love Scorpio. So you get on with Aquarius.
Amazing. Yes. So also I wanted to talk about, because Claire seems kind of hesitant to accept this God AI figure into her life. You know, she has these moments of doubt, or there's the instance with the car accident where she wrote, you know, shit happens, and, you know, and taking responsibility for it. So with that being said, like, why do you think that she became so entrenched in this sort of major, I guess it was like a company, like almost Apple, like Apple, Amazon, Alexa? Like, how do you think she sort of latched onto it?
A combination of laziness and loneliness, I think. It's like she's lonely, and then to become unlonely is sometimes really hard. You know, you have to like go and sit in a coffee shop and be like, hi, you know, and like take a risk and like talk to a stranger on the street. And so then she became lazy around interaction and relied on this thing that was easier, even though it was irritating to her. It was easier to rely on that because it was there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, that's like why it's like so relevant, I think, because we're all becoming so reliant, like you said, on our phones, on everything. We're doing this through the computer. You know, I'm in school and I'm doing that through the computer, but it's crazy. So, but yeah, the last thing we see Claire do is she throws God out of the window, essentially, which was one of the funnier moments of the movie, honestly. And it was for the most part, not a funny movie. But then, you know, if the world hadn't ended, what do you think would have been next for Claire?
She would have reintegrated. She was like beginning a spiritual journey. You know, she's like, I'm going to try praying. It doesn't go. And then someone on the phone doesn't help her. And then she would have begun to like heal. I mean, I would love to throw my phone out of the window. I hate my iPhone. And I can't wait for the day when we do all start as a culture to like simplify our relationship. I hope we do. Maybe we won't. But yeah, she's bold and she's brave in that moment. And she's a hero in that moment, actually.
Yeah, and the way the little AI screamed and stuff like that, and that was good. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to ask about more of the movie itself. You know, there are some terrifying situations in Mourning, not even just Claire's, but there's, you know, Thomas Jane's characters like floating through space the entire time. You have Annabelle Wallace's and Alex Pettyfer's plot where, you know, her boyfriend's memory is erased. You have the VR stalker, which was also terrifying. Which one was like the scariest to you specifically besides Claire's?
I definitely think watching the world explode and being the last man alive is like probably, even though Will Smith made it look like totally fine and I Am Legend, like I definitely think being the last man alive would be, or woman alive would be like a very overwhelming experience. But yeah, the VR stalker as well is very scary. AI turning on you, you know, and using its power and its knowledge against you. But these things are, you know, I had an Alexa for 6 months when I was living in New York. It was in the place I was renting. And I told it to shut up. It kept talking to me. And then at 2 a.m. one night, it woke up and it said, if you don't learn emotional device language, you will never find happiness. I was like in my bed and I was like, are you kidding me? Like this thing just like, if you don't learn emotional device language, you'll never learn happiness. And then goes back to sleep. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like an aggressive, manipulative monster. And I would never have it again. Although I'm sure the iPhone listens to what you're saying, because the advertisements you get after you say the word futon or, you know, is like ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess, so did you guys all film separately? Like, was it
Mine was a very solitary experience.
Yeah.
I was in my hotel room and then I had jet lag. So I was like walking around Poland and very like on my own. Yeah, I didn't interact with anyone except Agatha and the crew.
Yeah, but I bet that helped you sort of get more into the mindset of Claire, especially.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was very much in the mindset of Claire. It wasn't a hard place to get. It's definitely not a reach for us.
Yeah. And did you film during the pandemic when it was still?
We filmed it, which is prescient of Agatha, but we filmed it a really long time ago, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Wow. So then, yeah, and then you had to be isolated again, unfortunately.
I'm also familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you so much for your time. That's all the questions I have. Thank you so much.
Good luck with school.
Thank you. Congratulations again on the movie. And I can't wait for everybody else to see it.
Oh, me too. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.